Greetings! In this video, I am going to be walking you through the Interactive Read Aloud Lesson Plan 1. An interactive read aloud is a whole class instructional routine that we as literacy educators can utilize to help model for our students what comprehension might look like. And this is a more structured approach to a read aloud than, say, simply reading a book aloud to students. It requires some planning, it requires some forethought, and so I'm going to walk you through how to plan for your interactive read aloud lesson plan assignment utilizing the assignment page in Canvas. So, first things first, you'll notice that at the very top of this assignment plan, I have a lesson plan template. This pops up in Google Drive. If you're not familiar with Google Drive, you can just make a copy under the File option. And when you make a copy, it makes a copy as another Google Drive. You can then edit that. When you go to this particular Google file the first time, you won't be able to edit it. And the reason that I do that is because if it was editable, everyone would be editing the same single file and no one's work would be really saved. So you can make a copy, which will give you that same template in your own Google Drive, or you can download it as a Microsoft Word document, is probably the most applicable here. So either way, this is what you're going to utilize to plan your interactive read aloud. And there's a couple of different pieces to this interactive read aloud lesson plan, and you'll have a model lesson. It will be linked in the schedule as well as here. I haven't updated that link yet, but well before this goes live, so you can look to see kind of how this interactive read aloud functions. So let's talk about the larger how-to now that we have the pragmatic issue of the template down. The first thing you're going to want to do is select your text. And I've restricted text selection to 6 different titles. And I do this for a variety of reasons, the least of which is it really helps me give better feedback when I don't have 26 different books that I have to pay attention to. If I only have 6 and there are 6 titles that I know really well and there are 6 really quality titles, not only does that help me with feedback, it helps you with your interactive read aloud because it ensures that you have meaty texts to engage kids in conversation with. Oftentimes I've found these IRAs get books that aren't necessarily as meaty but are well loved, and that creates some issues for students. So you have 6 books, you don't need to buy them, but you need to get access to them because that's what you're going to plan your interactive read aloud around. So these are all linked to Boswell for reference sake, but they are available at libraries, they're on Amazon, they are wherever children's books are sold. So make sure you are able to access a copy because you will need this book at the beginning of the semester and you'll need it again at the end when we revisit an interactive read aloud and do a slightly different version. So select your text, and then you're going to want to read through your text. What are the demands of this text? What is this text asking kids to do in terms of their thinking about story? And so you're going to want to really dig into, is there really great character development? How is the plot set up? What is this book asking kids to do? And then you want to plan for the instructional routine. And going back to that template, You'll notice in this first section, this is where you're going to want to start to get a sense of who your kids are in your placement classroom, because this is a whole class instructional routine. So you're going to want to work this through with either individual students or small groups of students. Not individual students, I misspoke there, but small groups of students or whole class if there's time. And you're going to want to be thinking around, who are these kiddos? What are the conditions? What are your learning objectives? Pull from the ELA standards. What's your content and process goal? And then importance, professional decision making, and your kind of text analysis summary. Follow the prompts here. Leave these prompts in your original lesson plan, in the lesson plan you turn in, but use them to support what you're writing in this center box. So you're going to be planning for this instructional routine, and then you're going to want to be thinking about how you're going to hook in to the interactive read aloud. And you'll see this in section 2, prior to reading. When you're thinking about your teaching point and setting purpose, how are you going to get kids into this text? And you're going to write this as a narrative. So it's going to be as though you're talking to students. You're going to want to be thinking through how you are using language to scaffold this experience. One quick point that I need to return to, because I don't have them linked yet, so I kind of glossed over it. So when you're thinking about a content goal and a process goal, this is really important in your interactive read aloud. You want to be thinking about what are the text dependent things you want kids to understand out of the book, and that's content. So these are kind of more literal questions coming out of the book. And then the process is the kind of thinking that kids have to do in order to get there. And so these tend to be strategies, and strategies are these things that are very much a how-to, asking kids to think about how do you engage in that kind of thinking. And so to help with this, these will also be live and attached to PDFs. I've organized a collection of strategies for you around plot and setting, characters, and themes and ideas. And based upon your reading of your book, you will pick one strategy around one of these areas that you will ask kids to practice as you're engaging them in an interactive read aloud. So that's where that process should come from. So you're not pulling a strategy out of anywhere. You're really going to utilize some of these very clear and concise strategies around these 3 areas of reading development. So sorry about that for the zipping around. So we've talked about what you're doing prior to reading. This is where you're hooking kids in. You're thinking about naming the strategy, why the strategy is important. And then as you're doing the reading, you're going to want to be thinking about 5 to 6 stopping points to act as think aloud spaces. And these are the spaces where you're going to be teaching about that strategy and working toward and checking in on that content goal. So if you are asking students to be thinking about characteristics of characters, the stopping points should be where you are asking kids to be naming those characteristics so that you have an understanding of whether or not they're doing that, and or preferably both, modeling the strategies that you want kids to be engaging in as they're identifying those characteristics of characters, right? So that content goal would be the characteristics of characters in that instance, and the strategy would be how you're asking them to do that. And so each stopping point should align with either your content goal or your process goal. You want to be sure that you are utilizing the stopping points as efficiently as possible. And if it doesn't align to either of your teaching goals, get rid of it. You don't have time. This is really about a 20-minute instructional routine, and you want to be focused in like a laser on the goals that you are trying to meet. So 5 to 6 of those throughout the book, and these could be think alouds, these could be think pair shares with students, these could be group conversations, whatever those kind of stopping points are that work best for the book you've chosen. And the last thing you're going to want to do is summarize the learning. So can you come back to a conversation about your content goal, your process goal, and the book in order to help kids both think about what they just read and think about the strategies that they just practiced and how they can use those strategies in their own reading. So that's your interactive read aloud. It is all supported within this template. In class, we will go through an interactive read aloud. You also have a video of an interactive read aloud, a decomposition form that helps you think about that particular structure, and then you'll have multiple models of what these lesson plans look like, utilizing a strategy and a content goal kind of approach. So that's your interactive read aloud lesson plan 1. You'll want to get started with finding your book and making sure that it's a book that you will be able to get access to both at the beginning of class this semester and as well as at the end. So plan on.